And, well, that was entertaining. Hi. It's been a while, I know, since I filmed, but, you know, life gets in the way. It's been super busy, lots of things that have been going on, but I had a really fun idea, at least fun for me, hopefully it's fun for you, in which I read books that are tailored to the show that I'm in at the moment. So currently I'm in a show called Alice by Heart, and I've picked out 5 books to read for this vlog. They're all tailored for different reasons. A, their cover, B, their plot, and C, their themes. So I've chosen 5 books for this vlog. The first being First They Killed My Father, A Daughter of Cambodia Remembers, Real Life, At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. I have The Words That Remain. And finally, I have Swimming in the Dark by Thomas something, and it's on my Kindle in my desk drawer. I just don't feel like getting it out. I'm really excited to do this video. This is one of the reasons I wanted to create this channel. I really like the idea of just really getting into some text and just analyzing it in terms of the show that I'm currently in, and I think that this is going to be really exciting, and I'm super excited to bring you along on this journey with me. This will probably take a little longer to film than I expect, because I am currently in tech week for Alice by Heart, so I won't have a lot of time to read or film this week. But I'll try and film opening night and stuff, but most of it will just be book stuff, and that might not come for a little while because of how busy I am this week. But I'm super excited to bring you along on this journey with me. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Also, side note, I forgot that I'm in my room for the first time with you guys, and I really just wanted, I just wanted to admire the setup of books. I have way too many books in my room. It's honestly kind of a problem. And that's it. That's all I had to say now. Okay, I've got to go do work. Welcome back. It's been a while. I actually have not talked in front of the camera in such a long time. It's kind of crazy. And I'm pretty sure I said that in the last clip. Anyways, I finished First They Killed My Father. I also finished my show. Quick update. Okay, let's do a life update. I finished my show. It went so well. I'm so happy about it. So it kind of defeats the purpose of this video, but it doesn't really, because I started filming this a lot later than I intended because of a lot of other factors like getting sick and stuff. So I didn't do anything really last month or the month before that in terms of filming. But I finished the show and it went really well. I'm very happy about how that went. And we had some really good audiences. The performance, it was so much fun. I had such a blast performing it. I died every night because I was dying of tuberculosis, as I said. And yeah, and now I'm here. I have 2 weeks until finals, so that's that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. Anyways, I kind of want to apologize for the pretty awful lighting. The sun covered a cloud, and also my room is just not in the best place for lighting. But I did just work out, which was fun, and now I'm here and I'm ready to talk. I don't have a lot of time because I have to go meet someone for lunch. I'm meeting some friends for lunch, and that's exciting. Anyways, I finished First They Killed My Father, which after reading I definitely think pertains to the ideas and the themes of the show that I was just in. The loss of people throughout war is a very like important part of this book. I mean, it's called First They Killed My Father for a reason, right? And I think this book is just so heartbreaking in so many ways. You watch her as a 5-year-old, so she uses this there's this use of like younger language throughout most of the novel, right? And it's like what is going through her head as a 5 to 10-year-old, because that's when this novel takes place. And it's just truly heartbreaking to watch her experience all of this stuff and like lose all of these people, and just the confusion, the trauma, the just overall theme of this book, and is just so relevant to just a lot of people's lives, but also is very relevant to the show I was in, because we see Alfred, my character, who Alice loses because of tuberculosis, but this tuberculosis was partly as a result of everything that was happening in the world in 1941. This whole book was honestly like just so it makes you feel a lot of emotions. There's a lot of like trying to process what's going on and trying to really dive into like what everyone must have been experiencing. I think there were like a lot of moments. There were a lot of moments within the book that I just kept being like, this is just awful. It's so much trauma and information and propaganda at once. And the use of like trying to brainwash children is also so terrifying, because you also like see in a real time people getting brainwashed for the Pol Pot regime. And it is truly awful to watch, like, and just as a kid you have no one to turn to, because the adults in your life are getting killed one by one, but like you don't have a way to healthily process that loss, and you don't have anyone to turn to except for other adults. And so like you really see that in here, and I think you also actually really see that in Alice by Heart, because Alice does not have an adult to turn to, and none of the adults in the show are very are people that she feels comfortable turning to. She feels like they're against her because they're saying that she can't visit Alfred because Alfred has tuberculosis and they don't want her to get tuberculosis. And I think that like you see her kind of lose her grip and try and like reason with herself, but she doesn't. The fact that she doesn't have adults to turn to, she's a 16-year-old, and she doesn't have anyone to turn to, and so all she can really hold on to is Alfred. And so she holds on to him for as long as she can at the expense of Alfred. And I think that those themes really, like those themes of grief and loss, really tie into both of these things, both the novel and the show. And I think that this was definitely a good choice for relation to the show. Even if the show itself doesn't deal with the war aspect as much, it still deals with the impact of war on different people. And you have a character in there as well who is like supposed to be a young kid who has lost everyone, and he's also just one of the most broken characters. And I think you see some broken people within war all the time, and this book highlights that. But it's so well done. And I finished this book and I just was left kind of speechless. It was a very impactful story, and I think a lot of people left Alice by Heart very impacted as well with our performances, which is also a great thing to know. But their stories, there are definitely some similarities, and again, I think this was a good choice for this. Anyways, sorry, I just rambled a lot, so we're gonna move on. I do have to go, but the next book I'm gonna read is Real Life by Brandon Taylor. Yep. I love this cover. I don't I have nothing else to say. I know nothing about this book. I will let you know if it fits in with the themes of the show or the motifs of the show or anything like that. And yeah, I remember choosing this because of the blurb, and I think I choose most of these because of the blurb, so we'll see. I'll let you know. I'll fill you in when I'm probably like halfway through. I'm going to try and be a lot better. I'm trying to get this vlog out much sooner than I think I can. So we're gonna try our best to finish at least 3 more of these books this week, because I do want to get this out to you at a reasonable time, because it's been a while. And I also do have also, this is something in the comments, if you want to put it in the comments. If you want the video from February, because I did film a video in February, but I never finished editing it, because it just got so far from February that I was like, is this really something that people want to see? So if you do want to see it, let me know. But like, if you don't, that's also so fine, because it's been a while. It would also look kind of funny, but it's okay. Anyways, I've got to go. I'm already late, but I'll talk to you later. It has been, I think, about 3 days. I'm tired. I feel very tired, but I did finish Real Life. I did not check in with you when I got halfway through, but that's because I was checking with a friend, and this book was kind of wild, but we're going to get into that in a moment. But basically, it follows Wallace over the course of a weekend as he's he's at odds with this Midwestern university town that he is studying in for graduate school. And he has a chance encounter with one of his white classmates and / friends, and it leads to this relationship forming between the two of them. There's also this hostility and almost violence that kind of occurs between Wallace and the rest of the community that he's a part of. And it really is kind of an exploration, I think, of coming to terms with oneself, coming to terms with loving oneself, and also has overarching themes of racism and homophobia as well, and specifically the lack of intersectionality in white gay relationships. Yeah, so Real Life was, in some regards, a blast to read. I had a great time reading it because there was so much drama in this book. This book was filled to the brim with drama. It kind of was absurd. There were so many absurd parts that the reason I kept checking in with a friend was because I kept stopping reading to just go over the absurdity of some of the things that was happening. In the friend group that Wallace is a part of, honestly, is kind of just wild. It doesn't feel like any of them are actually friends with each other, because they never really enjoy anyone else's company, but they call themselves friends. I think I read at one point that if this was the dinner parties that Wallace has been missing out on, he's not been missing out on much, because man, was the dinner party just absolutely wild. That scene was just crazy in every respect of the word. It's just honestly kind of sporadic and just strange. And I feel like at some points the book had some really, really great points. And I didn't rate this book highly, not because I didn't find it entertaining, but because I don't think it did what it set out to do. The entire time I just kept thinking the themes just aren't being explored. So at one point I was even talking to my friend, I was like, maybe the idea is that racism takes a backseat to white middle class first world problems and in our present world, and like that's kind of what this book is showing, because Wallace's issues are just always pushed to the back of all of his white friends and white classmates, and his stuff is never taken seriously. We have this whole thing about white feminism versus intersectionality feminism, which isn't super well explored, I don't think, but is still a part of this book. And I think this book does a good job at some points, really, of explaining how Wallace is feeling. I think there's one specific instance I'm thinking of. So this is after a part of the dinner party scene, and basically this is what Wallace says. There will always be good white people who love him and want the best for him, but who are more afraid of other white people than of letting him down. It is easier for them to let it happen and to triage the wound later than to introduce an element of the unknown into the situation. No matter how good they are, no matter how loving, they will always be complicit, a danger, a wound waiting to happen. There is no amount of love that will ever bring Miller closer to him in this respect. There is no amount of desire. There will always remain a small space between them, a space where people like Roman will take root and say ugly, hateful things to him. It's the place in every white person's heart where their racism lives and flourishes, not some vast open plain, but a small crack, which is all it takes. I think that was a really, really great dive into the theme, but that also happened, on page 164. So I wrote in my notes, I was like, none of these people enjoy each other's company. From what I understand, also, Cole has a better relationship with the people in his lab than he does with his actual friends, and that kind of baffles me. There is an excessive use of similes in this book, and sometimes it doesn't feel like the author trusted the audience to get what he wanted them to get out of it, and I think that also made the book lose some of its power. Before reading this book, if you decide to read it, I would definitely look up some content warnings. There was a lot in this book, and I think the problem with it was that it didn't cover any of its themes expressly and enough. It didn't cover them enough for it to feel like the themes were fleshed out, which is really unfortunate. However, in some regards, that kind of ties it to Alice by Heart quite well. While I don't think any of its themes really related to Alice by Heart enough, the one thing that I think it did relate to was coming to terms with your past self and coming to terms with who you are, and seeing if you can heal past wounds. I think that overall this book didn't have almost anything in common thematically with Alice by Heart, so I think it was kind of a fail in terms of this video idea. But because all of the themes are pieced together so sporadically, it kind of fits really well with Alice by Heart, because Alice by Heart is a great example of a story that has so much potential, but fails because it doesn't explore its themes or have enough character depth or any of that. So that's where I think this book kind of, funnily enough, meets Alice by Heart directly in the center, and I think it's unfortunate that of all the themes and aspects of Alice by Heart that this book meets, it's the aspect of which Alice by Heart is least developed. But I think next I'm going to read The Words That Remain by Stenio Gardell, and I'll fill you in after I finished it. But I am now late to class, so until next time. Hi. It has been, I think, a while. I can't even tell you. It's been a while since I last talked. But since then, I've finished The Words That Remain, and I gave that 4.25 stars. It was a really wonderful book. It did bring me to tears. I didn't cry, but it did bring me to tears at the end. And it was just truly a work of art. I really enjoyed the way the story flowed, even though it took me a second to get into the writing style, because we went back and forth a lot between present and the past, but it was hard to tell as well, when someone was talking or when someone was thinking, because quotations seemed to be used inconsistently. But I did love the story progression. It was really just a hard story. It was really heartbreaking. And in terms of its relationship to Alice by Heart, I think in some regards you can say that the identity aspects of it kind of relate to the themes of Alice by Heart, but as a whole, the book itself does not really relate. And while I did enjoy both of them individually, I don't think that was necessarily a success for the themes. I will say that the themes of friendship and love and loss are very similar, and honestly have some similarities in terms of the way that they play out. It all comes from a very different angle than Alice by Heart. It was a lot. It was really hard at points to get through the book because it was just really heavy, but it was truly beautiful as well. And so now the next book I have is back here. Hold on. At Night All Blood is Black, and I'm super excited to read this one. I have meant to start it earlier, it's just I have not had time. I just finished college, or finished my first year on Friday, moved back home on Saturday, packed again, and moved into this house, which is a very different location from any of the other places I filmed. This is where I'll be staying all summer long, because I have a contract for 9 to 5, and so I'm just like gonna be here. I'm super excited. I'm really excited. The rehearsals start tonight, and I'll just be here kind of reading, hanging out with people, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. Anyways, I'm gonna get started on this book now because I have time, and I will see you after I finish. Hello. You're very far away. I'm going to apologize for that because I'm not moving the camera. Anyways, I finished At Night All Blood is Black, and I've also finished the other and final book in this vlog, which I read on my Nook, and that is Swimming in the Dark. And both of these were phenomenal, but I'll start with At Night All Blood is Black because that is the one that I did read first. I really fell in love with the way this was told, and just the character work. Each character, like, they all made a mark in the story, regardless of if they had a large amount of screen time or page time. I don't know why I said screen time, but page time like Alpha did or Mademba, or if they had very little, like Jean-Baptiste was in, I think, 1 or 2 chapters. And no matter what, like, each character was just so developed and nuanced and gorgeous and heartbreaking, and there was so much pain and just grief behind everyone, and I think it was just so well explored, these themes of grief and loss, and also the impact of war on one's psyche, and the duality of using savagery and what that means for racial stereotypes. It has some scathing critiques, it has some beautiful moments, some heartbreaking passages about loss, and I feel like there's some stuff I have to read. This is a good one. I had left the door of my mind open to the thoughts of others, which I mistook for my own. I wasn't hearing myself think anymore, but was hearing the others who were afraid of me. You have to be careful when you believe you're free to think what you want, not to let in the thinking of others in disguise, the false thinking of your father and mother, the spurious thinking of your grandfather, the masked thinking of your brother or sister, of your friends, in other words, of your enemies. Like, that's brilliant. There was also a really good line about translation, and there's this underarching motif of, like, translation throughout the book where we see Alpha is unable to speak French and Mademba is able to speak French. And so Alpha's interpretation of what a lot of people are saying is coming from secondhand and just body language and eyes, whereas Mademba is fluent and is able to actively have a conversation. And then we also get, that also kind of really works well with this book in particular, because this book is translated from French to English. This book is translated by Anna Mashavikis, and she does a brilliant job. There's just so much nuance to everything. She really captures the language that Diop used, I think, in a really authentic way. So when you get to this passage at the end that's talking about translation, it just really makes you think about the accuracy of this translation as a whole, and if this is actually what the author wants. As the character says, to translate is one of the only human activities in which one is required to lie about the details to convey the truth at large. To translate is to risk understanding better than others that the truth about a word is not single, but double, even triple, quadruple, or quintuple. To translate is to distance oneself from God's truth, which, as everyone knows or believes, is single. So, truly, truly a magnificent book, both in storytelling and character arc, and the ending was magnificent in my opinion, and just also gorgeous character building and character nuance and really good explorations of its themes. Really well done. And then I also read which this isn't helpful because it's a neck, so I'm not gonna hold it up. But I also read Swimming in the Dark, and I finished that about an hour ago. And that was also just phenomenal. I have so few words to describe how that book made me feel. It's like, I'm still trying to process it, I think. So we follow Ludwik and Januszek, and this is in Poland during the 1969-ish, 1968 to around 1980, 1981. And we follow their story, and this is a letter that Ludwik has written to Januszek. And it's just, everything about this book is so meticulously and expertly done. Each piece feels so natural, and it feels like the character is real. It feels like I'm being thrust into this character's life. I'm being thrust into this letter that this character wrote, and I'm feeling everything that this character is feeling. I feel the joy that he gets when he sees Carolina, and I feel the anger and resentment, and even in some way, like envy, and when he interacts with Hanya and Maxio. And I really love the way that the author has interwoven these narratives and made it feel authentic. We get little tidbits of his modern day life, but we also know that this is an explanation for everything that happened with him and Januszek, and it's just so gorgeously done. It has so many heartbreaking moments and moments that really speak. We see the use of James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room. It is used throughout the book a lot, and I think that it's a perfect book for what the themes of this book are doing and the themes of that book are doing. And we make some comparisons between the main characters and the book main characters, and David and Giovanni and Ludwik and Januszek. And we really see this character's journey through literature, but also we see this character's journey through self-actualization and really coming into himself, even though he's not really into himself by the end of this novel. And I think it's so heartbreaking to watch, because these two people are on separate ends of the political spectrum. One has full faith and belief in the party. That's like a little bit of an exaggeration, but is essentially what happens. And Ludwig, on the other hand, is angry with the party, with what it's doing, and it eventually leads to the ending. And you know that it's not going to work out from the beginning, because you know he's writing this letter to Januszek, and it's just, watching everything play out, you just really don't want that to happen. And you also see little things here and there. You see the prejudice that's kind of built into Ludwig's system from when he's a child. You see the care that his grandmother has for him. You see how he cares for the people around him, and how uncomfortable he is when he's in the presence of other male presenting figures. And I really fell in love with these characters, and it's hard to believe that the book is already over. And I can't express enough how much this book did for me, like in terms of just impacting me while I was reading it. I was like holding my hand on my heart, just like really trying to process everything that was happening, feeling so many emotions, and at the end of the day, just feeling sad, because there's a quote actually that I feel like describes it super well in this book. But that quote is near the end, and it's, "I feel more sadness than anger, maybe because the year is drawing to an end. There's only so much hatred you can produce, only so much resentment you can hold inside of you." And I feel like that's so true, and I feel like that statement has resonated with me, and I feel like could resonate with a lot of people. And I think I just think this book was really well done and just really beautifully explored. Now, as for its relation to Alice by Heart, so for At Night All Blood is Black, we have the obvious relationship of there being a war. This, of course, is the First World War, whereas Alice by Heart is the second. And you see that loss and that kind of descent into madness. The way the story is told, it's like it goes in circles a lot, and you see Alpha just constantly talking about the same thing over and over again. You're like, and it's clear that it's because he's trying to deal with something that he didn't expect to happen, something he can't process, and it's just his mind trying to go over the events, and I think it's just so well done. And I feel like you see the same thing in Alice by Heart, who's trying to cope with the fact that Alfred is dying. And so to cope with that, she comes up with this way of transporting them into Alice in Wonderland, because that's where they felt so safe and comfortable. And I feel like, although it's not the exact same in this book, there are some really strong similarities that you can pull between those two, especially because Alpha lost his closest friend, Mademba. And it's just him processing that loss and grief and anger. And I think it's really well done. We see a lot about like love with not only your friends, but also those that you know all your life. And we see that with Fairy Tiam. And I think that is kind of explored decently well in here, enough to make a somewhat relationship between Alice and Alfred, because in both cases, the story is never going to end in the way that you want it to end. And I think it has a lot of good similarities. It has a lot of powerful similarities. But I do think this is a much better and much more well-versed piece of literature than Alice by Heart. And then as for Swimming in the Dark, of course, has that theme of literature through it. We see the comparisons between Giovanni's Room's main characters, David and Giovanni, and the main characters of the novel, Ludwig and Wanushek, and we see how literature can mimic reality. We see that comparison, we can make this comparison to Alice by Heart, because Alice in Wonderland is used as a way to mimic life, a way to kind of transcend life almost. And I feel like in some ways Ludwig uses Giovanni's Room to do that, to transcend and live through, but at the same time to not make the same mistakes. Whereas in Alice by Heart, we see Alice making some of the same mistakes as Alice's character in Alice in Wonderland does. And then we also see that underlying story of doomed love, right? Because Ludwig and Wanushek are never going to get together, and Alfred and Alice can never get together because of obviously different reasons, but still, it's that loss, that feeling of disconnect, the alienation that Ludwig feels throughout the novel, and the way that Alice feels like Alfred is pushing her away, when Alfred is just trying to do that to make sure that Alice can move on when Alfred is gone, because he knows he's leaving, and he knows he's not going to make it. In this case, however, we don't see that as much, because Ludwig and Wanushek are really trying to make it work, but it's obviously doomed from the start because of their differences in political views and their different approaches to life in Poland. And yeah, I think that's everything. And finally, I'm going to get a video out to you guys. I'm so sorry it's taken so long, but I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.